नहमदुहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम व नशहदु अल्ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह वहदहु ला शरीका लह व नशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदन अब्दुहु व रसूलुहु। रब्बि इश्रह ली सदरी व यस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली। Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This Quranic understanding program is presented by Adult Quranic Education Program in Srinagar. Today we shall try to read and then simultaneously understand a few more verses from chapter 2, that's Al-Baqarah, starting from verse number 55. Verse number 55. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Wise kultum, and recall when you said, Ya Musa, O Moses, Lan nu'mina laka, we should never trust or believe in you, hatta nara Allah jara, until we see God manifestly. فَأَخَذَتْكُمُ الصَّاعِقَةُ. Then a thunderbolt seized you, وَأَنْتُمْ تَنْظُرُونَ, while you were watching all this. ثُمَّ بَعَثْنَاكُمْ. Then we raised you again, مِنْ بَعْدِ مَوْتِكُمْ, after your death, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you will be grateful. وَظَلَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْغَمَامَ, and we created a shade of clouds over you. وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَىٰ, and we sent down upon you divine food in the form of manna and kales. Kulu min tayyibat, and then told us to eat of the pure and best things, ma razaqnakum, which we are providing you. Wama zalamuna, what you did later, you didn't harm us, or you didn't wrong us. Walakin, they didn't wrong us, those your ancestors. Walakin kanu anfusahum yazlimun, but they wronged their own self, they harmed their own selves by their disobedience. Wa'iz, and remember when kulna, we said, udkhulu hazil karya, enter this city or this township. Fakulu minha haythu shi'tum, eat therefrom, plenty, whatever you would like to. Wadkhulul baba sujada, but enter this city through the gates while prostrating. Waqulu hitatun, and while entering, seek forgiveness from God. Naghfir lakum khatayakum, we shall forgive your sins. Wasanazidul muhsinin, and we shall grant even plenty to the doers of good. فَبَدَّلَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا, but the wrongdoers changed قَوْلًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي قِيلَ لَهُمْ, the word which they were asked to, by other words. فَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا, then we sent down upon these wrongdoers رِجْزًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ, a punishment from the heavens, bima kanu yafsukun, for their constant disobedience. Sadaqallahul Azim. As we have been reading about children of Israel for quite a few days, today again few more favors are mentioned here. Again I remind you, these verses were delivered in Medina, and these verses were revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Medina, and he conveyed them to the Jews of Medina, just informed them about their history. That through these verses, Muhammad, peace be upon him, was inviting them to the fold of Islam, to the faith of Islam, to be the true followers of divine right. So in this verse we see how many favors. Last time we studied many favors which were bestowed upon children of Israel by Allah the Almighty through Moses. They were relieved of the pain and agonies they were subjected to by Pharaoh. When Pharaoh followed them, and how Pharaoh and his army and his people and his army members got drowned in the waters of Red Sea, while the children of Israel, under the worthy command of Moses, were saved. And they were watching all this happening. And going across the sea, they were traveling through the Sinai desert. And now, instead of being grateful, how ungrateful they turned when Moses was called by Allah for appointed days for 40 nights. In his absence, they took to the worship of calf. How ungrateful they were. And in this connection, the ungratefulness of children of Israel is repeated from historical records. Quran says, recall, O children of Israel, why qultum ya Musa, when you said to Moses, lan numina laka, never shall we believe or trust you, hatta nara Allah jahra. That means when Moses came back, he told them, oh people, I have come with guidance for you. I have received divine revelations, and both in word as well as in written form also. Moses has this distinction that he received certain revelation, what we call now 10 commandments, in a written form by Allah's will. They were inscribed on stone plates or slates. When Moses came back and told his people, yes, I have got this revelation, I had gone to see, I responded to the divine call. I was called by Allah the Almighty, and I have received guidance. With that guidance, I am coming back to you, and this guidance I have received from God, Allah the Almighty. They point blank refused. How ungrateful they were. This that mentioned here. Why qultum, in response, recall when you said, Ya Musa, O Moses, you told your beloved, worthy prophet, who had delivered you from the clutches of Pharaoh, who was so affectionate to you. He loved you so much. He was your guide. He saved you from all the clutches and pains and agonies. You told him, why is qultum, and when you said, Ya Musa, O Moses, lan numina laka, we shall never believe or trust in you, hatta nara Allah jahra. How can we believe you receive divine revelations unless we see God ourselves? See, imagine how painful it would have been for Moses. How Moses was shocked to hear all this from his own people, not from Egyptians, not from his enemies, but his own so-called followers. How shocking, how painful it was for Moses when they said in response to divine revelation which was carrying forward guidance. They said, lan numina laka, never shall we trust or believe in you, hatta nara Allah jahra, unless we see God, Allah ourselves. Then what was there? فَأَخَذَتْكُمُ الصَّاعِقَةُ, then a thunderbolt struck you. It was a sort of divine punishment, divine anger against this ungratefulness and hurting the feelings of great Moses, that they were caught or seized by a thunderbolt. Quran says, "Wantum tanzun," and you were watching. These messages are conveyed to the Jews of Medina, but it is related to their ancestors. These verses talk about their ancestors. Their ancestors had done around 2,000 years backwards. Then Quran says, still Allah was great, it was so kind to you. Summa ba'asnakum, then we raised you again, min ba'di mawtikum, after your death. That means we brought you back to life, even after death. Otherwise, a thunderbolt had struck you and died on spot. It is related in history that from Old Testament also, Moses chose 70 pious and righteous leaders. Chose 70 people with him to follow him, to accompany him to the mount. And it happened there. And Quran says, "Summa ba'asnakum min ba'di mawtikum." Then we raised you again after your death. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you become grateful. That this wasn't it again a great favor. That after getting punishment, he forgave you, brought you back to life. But still, that means still you were ungrateful. The وَظَلَّلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْغَمَامَ. In this verse, we have to keep a small background in mind, which I have already told you, but I shall repeat. That since children of Israel, after Pharaoh got drowned, and his armies, his armaments, everything, children of Israel are free. They are moving in the desert, that's Sinai desert. Their final destination is Palestine or Canaan, their native land, their promised land, which they had to go back. And now they are traveling through the desert. I told you, there were many numbers, hundreds and thousands in numbers. How much food stuff they could have carried with them? They were, as I told you, according to Old Testament, around 500,000 in number. A big caravan. Of course, they say they were carrying some flocks of sheep and goats, but they couldn't suffice for such a big caravan. And number one. Number two, they were traveling through the desert. You know, during daytime, when sun shines brightly, it creates high temperature. And beneath sand, which becomes so hard and bearable. And the children of Israel were poor, destitute, poor people. Many of them didn't have even their sandals or shoes to wear. And even if they had, some people had, but under the scorching heat of sun and burning sand underneath, it was very hard for them to continue their travel. So Allah was so kind when Moses prayed to his Lord. What was happened? That a big chunk of cloud was created over them, which shaded this whole caravan. And the route where from this caravan would move, the children of Israel, this clouds would move along and save them from tremendous heat of the sun and the burning sand underneath. Wasn't it a great favor? Number one. Number two, they didn't have enough foodstuffs. Of course they could slaughter a few sheep or goat or some camels they might be carrying along, but how long? It was not possible. So Moses prayed to Allah, and Allah was so affectionate, so merciful, so compassionate for them, that divine food was arranged during this desert journey in the form of manna, and Quran says manna and salwa, which we translate in English, manna and kales. What was that? There are different interpretations. Manna is described as there's a big caravan. During nights, some frost or dew drops would appear on the sand. Dew drops, and which would freeze during night because there's low temperature. It would freeze, get frozen into gum or honey-like pieces, which they would collect in the mornings, and then they would grind it into a flour. And it's sweet flour because it was honey like gum like. It was sweet also. They would make breads out of it. And this was manna. And about salwa, it is flocks of birds, low-flying birds in hundreds and thousands would overfly them, this caravan. And they were so weak that these caravan people, this Israel, it was very easy for them to catch hold of them, then slaughter them, and use them as food. So there was, in a way, both vegetarian and non-veg food arrangement by divine will for them. Man and salwa. Manna, that kind of, as I told you, the frost or dew, which got frozen into gum or honey-like structure, sweet, and they would grind it and grind it into flour, make breads out of it. That was vegetarian food, and non-veg food was there. The flocks of birds in hundreds, they would overfly them, and they would easily catch hold of them, slaughter them, and use them as food. This wasn't it a great divine favor for these children of Israel, but still they were ungrateful. That's what Quran emphasizes. وَظَلَّلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْغَمَامَ. We created a shade of clouds over you during this desert journey. Otherwise, we would have been finished. وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَىٰ. And we sent down upon you divine food in the form of manna and kales. كُلُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. We asked you through Moses that eat of the pure and the best things which we are providing you as a sustenance. Eat, it is for you. But what you did, you showed ungratefulness. What was that? The result of their ungratefulness. وَمَا ظَلَمُونَ. They didn't harm us. They didn't hurt us. وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. But they harmed their own selves by disobedience, constant disobedience and ungratefulness, that by and by these all favors were withdrawn from them. That's the wrong. That's how they wronged themselves. This, and again, one more episode from their history. Then one more. When during their desert journey, they wanted to, instead of wandering in the desert, they wanted to settle somewhere for some time, in some township, some village. Some people believe that this was about their entry into the territories of Palestine. And some say, no, it was en route during the desert journey. And Allah knows better. But we are not concerned about that. Quran is not bothered about that. Otherwise, it would have mentioned and named that countryside or the village or the township. Quran says, "Wais kulnat khulu hazil karya," which commanded you, enter this township. Any township. Fakulu mina haisu shitum ragada. Eat there from there, everything will be in plenty. You eat there from plenty, wherever and whatever you would like to. It's for you. But there's a condition. Vadkhulul baba sujada. Enter the gateway of this city while bowing down, prostration. That means in humility, not in pride, not as arrogant people, not feeling that we have conquered this city. Take it as a reward from Allah. So be grateful and enter the gates of the city or town while prostrating, while bowing down. Gates, we know in olden times, cities were generally covered, protected by high walls, and there were gates in between. As we see in India, in Delhi, we see Delhi, what was actually Delhi, that old Delhi, we call it now Shahjahabad, in the time of Mughals. Don't we see that there was a wall around the whole city of Delhi, which was the capital city of Mughals, and we see there were gates, entry gates. We see the remnants of those gates even today, in the Ajmeri gate, Kashmiri gate, Lahori gates, and other gates. These were the entry points. Same way it was in olden times we see. And we see from the story of Joseph, even when his brothers and children of Israel entered Egypt, there's also mentioned gates, they had to enter the gates. It was a practice in the olden times for the protection of cities. That's why gates is mentioned here. Why is kul nadkhulu hazil karya, O children of Israel, during this desert journey, when we commanded you, enter this township. Fakulu min haisu shitum ragada. Eat there from plenty, whatever you would like to, and where from you would like to. But vadkhulul baba sujada. Enter the gates of this city while prostrating, in humility, in humbleness, not with pride and with arrogance. Wakulu hittatun, and on your tongues should be word hittatun. It's an Arabic word. Hittatun means you should, on your words, instead of proud and hot or haughtiness or arrogance, there should be words of repentance. Oh Allah, that means forgive us. Forgive us. If there is any omission of commission, if we have fallen short anywhere, you forgive us. These words should be on your tongues. Naghfir lakum khatayakum. We shall forgive your faults and sins. Sanazidul muhsinin. And we shall even give even more to the doers of good, more rewards and more favors which shall bestow upon the good doers. But even that, imagine, still they were ungrateful. They turned against these divine commands. In the next verse, Quran says, فَبَدَّلَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. But these wrongdoers changed qawla, the word. They were asked to enter the city or town with prostration, with humility, in humbleness, and seeking forgiveness, hittatun. But they changed all this. They entered this town with pride, with arrogance, as if they had conquered the city. And as we see from historical records, or with certain references from Old Testament also, Book of Exodus, we see that they started killing the inhabitants, raping the women folk, looting of their properties and wealth. It was totally against the commands. They didn't take this as a reward, as a favor, of divine favor upon them. They took it as if they were the conqueror, they were the victors, and they were at liberty to do anything with their people, their city, dwellers they had conquered. And they indulged in all kinds of evil things. That's Quran says, فَبَدَّلَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا قَوْلًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي قِيلَ لَهُمْ. But the wrongdoers changed the word, what they were asked to follow, by other words, that pride and evil things. فَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا رِجْزًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. Then we sent on those wrongdoers a punishment from the heaven, because they deserved this punishment. for their constant and continuous ungratefulness and evil actions. There's a وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا رِجْزًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. We sent upon these wrongdoers, these transgressors, punishment from heavens. Punishment is generally interpreted as plague, the disease which they suffered, and many of in hundreds and thousands they got killed. This was a punishment, divine punishment for this violation of the commands and indulging in all kinds of evil actions in that city. Bima kanu yafsukun. By the term bima kanu, it was for their constant and continuous, persistent disobedience to the divine commands. They had to suffer like this. Sadaqallahu al-Azim wa sadaqa rasuluhu an-Nabiy al-Kareem walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.